Now that we've got the form out of the way, let's go ahead and create our first ad. So we'll continue to have the same naming convention as we have for the campaign, just so that it's easier to correlate or have the ads match up with each other, or the campaign names and stuff match up with each other. We'll come to the other part, the introductory text and the URLs in a bit, but let's first tackle the image. So the dimensions of the image. So you can go to the just Google the Business LinkedIn single image ad specs, and if you come up onto this page, you can see that there's a few options that you can use. So you obviously have the image ratio 1.91:1, which is the horizontal one, which you can use for both desktop and mobile. You have a 1:1 square, which you can use for both desktop and mobile, and then you have 1:1.91, which is a vertical only, which you can only use on the mobile. So those are the recommendations on the image itself. It has to be below 5 MB and has to be either a JPEG or a PNG. So I recommend you get a graphic designer to be able to create your first ads. You can obviously jump on and get your first images done yourself, but ideally having a graphic designer would definitely improve your CTR, and we'll talk about why CTR is important later down in the best practices. In terms of the specifications, don't worry too much about all the sizes they mentioned, but recommended version is 1200 by 628, which is what you're really going for. And because a lot of people, because LinkedIn is a sort of a medium where most people will end up on the desktop itself. It's a very less number of people that will actually open up a browser and log into LinkedIn. Even if they're using an app, nobody opens up a LinkedIn app just like they would the Facebook app. So really, the vertical version wouldn't be worth the ROI that the horizontal one on the desktops would be. So we stick to this 1200 by 628 pixel. I'll also demonstrate to you what the 1200 by 1200 pixel looks like on a mobile phone and on a desktop. And vertical versions are simply not worth the ROI paying a designer to be able to do. So that one single image would be sufficient. So let's have a look at how that would work. So first we'll look at the 1200 by 1200. So first we'll look at the 1200 by 1200, which is the square version. And if you have a look, uploading the 1200 by 1200 will squeeze it out on the desktop. So you squish it on the desktop version. If I have a look at on the mobile one looks good. So again, here I really have to sort of see whether do I go for this version or not. So it's just easy to go with the 1200 by 628 version. So I'll choose that, go ahead, upload that, and wait for the preview. So you can see it's now loaded. Looks okay on the mobile. It's clear, and on the desktop version looks great too. Now you'd see a slight loss in quality on the images on this preview, but when you actually go to an in-feed view, that quality would improve. I'd also recommend having your fonts being crisp. Make sure your images have a play on what the LinkedIn background and resolution is. So I've really opted for a gray and a white for it to merge into the background. So you can play with the colors and some of these other things to try and make that ad blend in as if it's a natural thing in your feed. So that's a bit about the image. Now let's jump into the introductory text. Here's the most important part about the introductory text, the headlines and the description. It is against all, it is against everything that you might hold dear, especially if you're from a technical background, if you're software engineers, SaaS company owners, or just in the tech world. People hate the clickbaitiness of the titles. But the entire goal of this exercise is to do LinkedIn ads is to improve your CTR. So for absolute beginners, CTR is simply a measure of how many people click your ads versus how many people see it. So if 100 people see your ads and 5 people click it, your CTR is 5%. And the higher the CTR, the better the chance of your ads doing well. And the reason for that is LinkedIn makes money on clicks. And if your ads get a lot of click, LinkedIn is going to make a lot of money. And so what LinkedIn is going to eventually do is it's going to keep promoting the ads that get a lot of clicks, because it obviously wants to make a lot of money. So we are going for a really high amount of CTR, and so it's almost entirely called for to have a little bit of a clickbaity title. So here, to give you an example, landing pages that convert is the course. So I'm going to say, enroll now in a never before published course on landing pages. Something like that. It is true that it's never been published before, because I'm the one publishing this course for the first time. As you can see, I've actually capitalized landing pages, but I can even capitalize everything. I can make that small. I can really just go at it from a perspective of what I feel is accurate. Now, you can go bonkers and you can use all those 600 characters, or you could leave it to one line and let the image do the talking. It's entirely up to you. In my experience, if your image is good enough, if your image is really great, then I let the image do the heavy lifting. And the reason for this is, if you go all the way up to 600 characters, LinkedIn will normally terminate your ads like this here with see more. And so you don't want to be stuck with that see more option there, and your message is being blocked out. But you can see this image here. It's absolutely it's absolutely catchy. You want to see what's going on, and you want to click on it, and you want to be able to see what this whole thing is all about. So that's what you're really going for. So going back here, short title, sort of just tell them what this whole thing is all about, and then eventually have a destination URL as well. Now remember, in our case, we don't really need the URL here, because what we're really going for is we want them to, so I'm just going to get the URL nonetheless. What we're really going for here is we want them to fill out a form. But as you enter the URL, which is, if they click this URL, which is where they will land, you will now be presented with options to start putting in a headline and a description, right? So again, I'll probably stick to the same headline here. So enroll in a never before published landing page. You could change this to something like landing pages that convert as the headline, and then simply leave the description as is, right? You can also write a description. Now, it's really up to you, but you can see here, for an example, an ad by Google. You can see they've just sort of really played around with a very short title with very little description, if at all. And if I click on that, it obviously takes me to the website, which is where really the whole thing sort of transpires for that Google ad. So leave that as it is. Form detail, because it's a gated content. I'd really want to go for the download button, and I'll select the form that I created before, which is the Google Analytics FO. Create that ad. Please tag an issue continues. Please there was an error saving your ad. So this does happen sometimes. It does happen every now and then. You just have to come back sometimes, and just have to try again. So that's the nitty-gritty. So I'm just going to cancel that. Just come back quickly. Try and use let's just try and quickly recreate that ad. I'm going to use the image, which is the 1200 by 628. I'm going to use the introductory text is enroll now in never before published course on landing pages. So do that, fix that enroll thing, and then I don't have a dedicated URL. I'm going to get there we go. I've got a dedicated URL, which I'm going to put in here, and then just gonna call this landing pages that convert. I suspect it's got to do with that image disappearing here, but let's proceed. See if if LinkedIn wants to take it, and then create. There was an error. Saving your ad again has some problems. Let me just try with another image that I've got there. Hopefully that fixes the issue. Yeah, it's the image that wasn't loading. So there we go. I've got that as a draft. I can actually click on this show in feed, or I can I can click on show in feed to actually see how the ad will look. So as you can see, this is how the ad will look. It'll have the download button. You click on the download button, will bring up your form that we created in the early part of the campaign. Now, what you want to be going to be able to do from here is, if you have multiple variations of this ad, you can simply duplicate the ad, right? And when you present it with the duplicate ad, you simply title number 2 and then simply change the actual image. So let's say if that was version 3 and now I've got version 4, there's obviously, it looks like version 4, and I click on create, and that sort of creates the duplicate of that initial version. So once you've done, or once you've created enough, if you've got multiple versions, you've created multiple ads, you will simply click on next to be able to proceed to the next section.